So the entire resort is going to be for Anarchapulco participants. So if you see somebody there, they're either working for the hotel or they are there for Anarchapulco. It's turned
or they're feds.
It's turned. Well, there's a good chance of that.
Well, the feds are there for Anarchapulco.
Yeah.
So
True.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Wherever there's a gathering of purported anarchists, there's a good chance some federal agent or more than one of them will likely be present. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
That's just the reality.
I mean, besides Cantwell.
Yeah, he's not going.
He's not a fed either.
Well,
I thought he was. Wasn't he?
He admitted.
Didn't he become an informant?
Yeah, he admitted
to
to informing on people in his own new movement that he's in. You remember that, right?
I think we're going to disagree on the nature of that conclusion.
Okay. Well, I mean, he wrote an article explaining that he was a Fed informant.
He has clickbait titles. Everyone knows he has clickbait titles.
Okay. So what do you want to say about it? Because I mean, it seemed like he was an informant. I read the article. I'm pretty sure I know what went on.
I mean, well, an informant to me is somebody who's like, hey, FBI, in exchange for either a plea deal or some money, I will go and spy on these people and inform back to you.
Well, in this case, that's not what he did. In this case,
Well, that's not an informant. Then.
Well,
what was your impression of what Cantwell did? Just so we're on the same page.
If you have an agreement with someone up front that these are the terms of what is going to be released if something goes down, I can't call that anything negative because you agree to that.
I'm not sure I understood what you just said.
So if me and you have an agreement, we're going to deal drugs, but if we get caught, you're going to flip on me.
Okay.
Cantwell was stealing?
No.
And then
we get caught, and then you flip on me.
That's part of the agreement, you're saying?
Yeah.
What's that have to do with Cantwell's situation? Because my understanding was, and I'm not saying...
he filmed a room of people who agreed to be filmed, knowing that, if anybody gets busted, we're going to release this to prove we're not doing anything illegal.
No, that wasn't it at all. He went to the feds because he wanted to protect his own butt. Which I don't blame him for it, and he was at the very least honest about it. So he's not an informant in your typical way, in that he was trying to hide the fact that he was an informant, or trying to set somebody up. What he's gone to the feds over, as I understand it, is reporting these people in this. He's part of, for those that don't know, we're talking about Chris Cantwell. He's a former host on Free Talk Live. We had to kick him off the show because it turned out he ended up becoming a racist. Since then, he's become even more racist and has gotten in with these white nationalist people. He went to that Charlottesville thing a couple of years ago in Virginia. And so part of that was communicating to the feds essentially illegal things that people were trying to rope him into that he didn't want to be roped into. And he came right out and admitted it. So he's not an informant in the traditional way that you would think of an informant, but he certainly did inform on his so-called compatriots to the federal government. Now, some of his compatriots could have themselves been agents provocateur trying to provoke Cantwell into doing some sort of violent act.
Also,
right?
Announcing that you're a Fed is a really good way to... Well, it's a really good way to do a lot of things, but it's a really good way to make yourself compromised in the sense that now I really kind of can't narc on anybody, and I think you did something like this at one point.
Well, the reason that I announced when they tried to turn me and make me become an informant, I did make the announcement that they tried to make me become an informant. Right. Precisely because that destroyed my value to them as an informant, sure. And that way they didn't go after my girlfriend and try to use her to pressure me because there was nothing left I could do for them. But I don't know, the thing that I remember about Cantwell's article, and I wish I'd reread it before the show. I seem to remember him snitching out Antifa people.
And
possibly raccoons.
Him, that's not snitching.
Well,
if someone physically attacks you and you call the cops, that's not snitching. We can debate the merits of that, but that's not snitching.
That's not true if you're in the life. If you're part of it, if you're a gangster and some other gangster comes after you, you don't call the police. Or that is generally considered snitching. You can
but he
shoot
wasn't
him,
engaged
but
in,
that's
mutual
honorable. Being a
combat.
snitch is not honorable.
So I tend to agree that being a snitch is not honorable. However, I make a carve out for violence. So if you see somebody commit a murder or something like that, it's not snitching to give some information over on an actual violent person. Let's talk about it more. I
agree if you're a civilian.
More on the way here in moments. This is Free Talk Live. And Rich, you were saying that you kind of agreed with me where if you witness somebody commit a violent act, a rape or a murder or something like that, that to me, I don't consider that to be snitching at all. That you're actually working to put away somebody who is a harm.
Snitching kind of implies you're not minding your own business.
Snitching is where, in my opinion, when you're snitching on somebody who's doing something that's not harmful to others, meaning selling drugs or something else like that.
From an ANCAP point of view, I would say that's the same.
From anarcho-capitalist?
Yeah, from an anarcho-capitalist point of view, I would say that that's probably true, but generally, I mean, gangsters don't expect the little old lady next door not to call the police if she's in danger. But and there are times that they do use the police against each other, but it's definitely not. It's considered dirty pool in that.
Sure, if you're talking about gang versus gang, then I see what you're saying.
Yeah, when
there.
it's gang versus gang, murder is part of the game. That's part of the ethic, and it's part of the snitching inhibition.
Well, plus, if you bring in the police as a gang member, then they're likely going to bring you up on charges anyway for something. So it's against your interest, period, to involve the police from that perspective.
Generally true, but against your interest, but also unethical by that.
I'll agree with you there.
Well, yes, but I don't know if I'm going to adopt gang ethics any more than I'm going to adopt.
Well, no, he's only
ethics.
talking about. He's talking about you're only a snitch when it's murder if you're doing it from within a gang. If you are one gang member snitching on another gang member, you're supposed to settle it outside of the system.
But yeah, I can understand the argument there. Whereas, okay, well, if we're in the business of killing each other, we're not going to call the cops because we're killing each other. That at least makes logical sense.
That's the idea. Let's go to Matthew. He's in Louisiana. Matthew, you're listening online via the TuneIn app. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Richard bring that up because we had a sheriff down here, and Melanie may remember hearing about him, called Harry Lee. And he was considered by many people to be one of the most successful sheriffs in Jefferson Parish history. He kept the peace. And there's always been this rumor of some kind of a corruption, and I think I know what it was, because I saw him hanging around with basically kind of a not really notorious, but known mid-level drug distributor. I worked for the guy in his restaurant, very profitable restaurant. And he basically had a stable of drug dealers, from the street dealers to the...
Who did? The sheriff had a stable of them, or the guy you worked with?
The sheriff.
Okay.
The guy I worked for was one of the guys in his stable. And the idea was, yeah, y'all can ply your trade, keep it under control, don't do any of the violence over territory stuff. You see somebody coming into your territory, call me, I'll handle it.
Yep.
And he did. And guess what? Jefferson Parish had an amazingly low crime rate.
Do you recall this story at all?
I wasn't in the area when he was in office. I was probably a little bit too young for him. I believe that...
So where'd this all go, Matthew?
Well, he died in office.
Oh, okay. So he got away with it.
The guy who replaced him had no idea what was going on, so he just started busting drug dealers left and right, irrespective of how dangerous they actually were. And we wound up, we're still better off in Orleans Parish, but that's not saying much. So...
Wow.
It's just like to get rid of one drug dealer, another one lines up, take his place.
So true.
I understand the people who replaced El Chapo make El Chapo look like a candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Really? What have you heard about them?
Oh, well, they do things like, behead people, leave them in front of newspaper offices. They're trying to take over a town called Nuevo Laredo. This is from Breitbart News.
Mm-hmm.
They assaulted an American consulate with a grenade.
Wow.
And supposedly automatic weapons. I don't know if they used semi-automatic weapons and just pulled the trigger real fast. But I'm questioning that because guns are illegal in Mexico unless you buy them from the state-approved gun store. So,
well,
why does it make you
cocaine is
question that?
illegal too, and they had a lot of that.
Cartels have their ways of getting guns. They don't go through.
Possible. Whenever you pass a law, whenever you pass it against this, vanishes it, doesn't it?
No. Thanks, Matthew. Thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you.
I wonder if they're going after Obama's record. If they're going for the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, Obama has killed more children than all other Nobel Peace Prizes.
Right.
Nobel Peace Prize winners combined.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.